My brother called me 3 days before the gala and said, "Try to look normal, okay? These are real business people." I didn't ask what that meant, I already knew. My name's Margot. I'm 32, and I work in municipal planning for the city, infrastructure, zoning, development permits. Boring to most people. Apparently boring enough that my brother Derek decided I needed a better introduction. The ballroom was exactly what I expected. Crystal chandeliers, people in suits talking too loud about deals. Derek stood on stage with a microphone, champagne in hand, grinning at the crowd like he'd just landed a spaceship. That's when he said it. "And here's my sister, everyone. She works overseas with Clay, uncle stuff." He laughed. The crowd erupted. People were doubling over. I felt my jaw tighten, not from anger, from clarity. See, Derek didn't know what I actually did. He never asked. And that night, surrounded by 300 people who thought my life was a joke, I realized he'd never planned to let me tell them. I set down my drink and walked toward the stage. Derek and I grew up in a house that felt split down the middle. Our mom was warm. She'd sit at the kitchen table and actually listen to you talk. She'd remember details, small things, like how I hated the texture of tomato skin, or that I'd been nervous about my third-grade presentation. Dad was different. Accomplishment was the only language he spoke. Derek learned it fluently by age 12. I remember being 14, showing Mom and Dad my acceptance letter to a competitive public policy program. Dad glanced at it while checking his phone. "That's nice," he said. Then he turned to Derek. "Your brother just got promoted to junior partner track at the firm. Now that's something." Derek was 16. Mom squeezed my hand under the table. That became our thing. Her silent apology for the gap between what he said and what I needed to hear. She died when I was 27. A stroke, sudden and complete. Derek sent flowers to the funeral. He didn't come himself. Some merger was closing. After that, I stopped trying to bridge the distance between us. I built my own life, quiet, steady, the kind of work that actually changes how a city breathes, even if nobody at a gala would understand it. But Derek still showed up sometimes, checking boxes. The first hint came 6 months before the gala. Derek texted a photo from some conference, him at a panel table, smiling, caption underneath, "Building real futures." I didn't respond, but I noticed he'd started mentioning me more, casually, to people we'd run into. Always vague, always small. "My sister does something with government," he'd say. Or, "She works in the city doing administrative stuff." He'd pause, like he was trying to remember. Like I was a footnote he hadn't bothered to memorize. Then came the dinner with his work friends at a steakhouse downtown. I made the mistake of accepting. Halfway through, one of his colleagues asked what I did. I started explaining how I'd just pushed through a zoning variance that would let a community health clinic expand into a neighborhood that desperately needed it. How the negotiations took 8 months. How it mattered. Derek interrupted me. "She likes the bureaucratic side of things. You know, forms, meetings, that kind of work." He said it the way someone might describe a hobby: pottery, knitting, something harmless and inconsequential. His friend nodded politely and turned back to Derek, asking about some acquisition. I finished my steak in silence, but I was watching now, really watching. The disrespect wasn't loud, it was systematic, and it was deliberate. 2 weeks before the gala, I got curious. Derek kept name-dropping this major development project he was handling, some mixed-use complex downtown. He talked about it constantly, how big it was, how it would transform the neighborhood. I pulled the permit applications. There it was, a 500-unit residential tower with retail space, proposed for the Riverside corridor. The application had been in my department for 4 months. Derek's firm was the developer. But here's what made my stomach drop. The environmental impact report was garbage, deliberately incomplete. They'd omitted the stormwater runoff analysis, buried the historical preservation concerns, and their traffic model didn't account for the school 3 blocks away. Any competent city planner would flag it immediately. I checked the submission history. The application had been resubmitted 3 times already, each time with the same gaps. Someone at Derek's firm kept thinking they could slip it past us. Then I saw the note in the file from my director. She'd flagged it last week, recommending denial. The project would need a complete redesign, proper studies, community input, the whole thing. Derek's deal was going to collapse, and he had no idea I was involved. He thought my job was pushing papers around. He had no idea that people like me, were the actual gatekeepers. I closed my laptop and sat there in the dark. He'd spent years making me feel small, and I'd been the one holding his entire project in my hands the whole time. You said, next, I didn't tell anyone. Not my best friend Sarah, not my therapist. I just waited. For 2 weeks, I went to work like normal. I reviewed permits, attended meetings, sat through budget discussions. Derek texted me about the gala 3 times. Reminders to come, jokes about dressing up, casual jabs about my usual style. I confirmed each time, polite, simple. At night, I researched. I pulled every document related to his project. I looked at the developer's previous work, their financing structure, what other projects they had pending in the city. I wanted to know exactly how much this one mattered to him. It mattered a lot. The mixed-use complex was their flagship proposal for the next 5 years. The financing was already lined up. They'd made commitments to investors, promised timelines. If the city denied it, or even delayed it with mandatory revisions, it would cost them millions. I wasn't planning revenge. I was just gathering facts, understanding the weight of what was about to happen. The night before the gala, I laid out the dress I'd wear, charcoal gray, sharp. I set my phone on the nightstand and looked at my reflection in the mirror for a long time. Derek had taught me something useful, actually. He'd shown me how to smile while someone underestimated you, how to stay quiet and keep your eyes open. Now I was going to show him what quiet people actually see. The gala started at 7. I arrived at 7:30, which gave Derek enough time to drink and forget I might show up at all. I found him near the bar, already 3 drinks in, holding court with a group of men in expensive watches. He saw me, and his face did that thing. Quick recalibration. Suddenly I was useful. Suddenly I was his sister, the one he could parade around. Margot, you came. He pulled me into a side hug that felt performative, like he was showing the room that we were close, that he was the kind of successful guy who had a family. Wouldn't miss it, I said. He kept his arm around my shoulder, possessive. I could feel him deciding how to use me. I was decoration, a prop to fill out the image of a well-rounded life. Around 8:30, he got the idea. I could see it happen. His eyes got that gleam they always got before he did something cruel disguised as funny. Come on, he said, steering me toward the stage. I want to introduce you to everyone. My heart didn't race. That was the strange part. I felt completely still, like I'd already lived this moment 100 times in my head, and now it was just playing out the way I'd expected. He kept his hand on my back as we climbed the steps, protective, controlling. The microphone was waiting. The crowd quieted when Derek tapped the mic. He launched into a story about the company, about growth and vision, about building things that matter. Standard Gala speech. Then he pivoted. And I want to introduce someone special, my sister, Margot. She works overseas with Clay, uncle stuff. He laughed first, giving the crowd permission. They took it. The laughter rolled through the ballroom like a wave. I felt Derek's hand still on my back, proprietary, satisfied. I stepped forward and gently moved the microphone toward me. Thanks for that introduction, I said. My voice was steady. But I should clarify what I actually do. I work for the city's Planning and Development Department. I review major development projects, environmental impact, zoning compliance, community considerations. I've been there for 7 years. The room shifted. People leaned in. 3 weeks ago, a 500-unit mixed-use development was submitted for approval in the Riverside Corridor. I paused. Let that sink in. It's been resubmitted 3 times because the environmental report is incomplete. The stormwater analysis is missing. The historical preservation concerns were buried. The traffic model doesn't account for the elementary school 3 blocks away. Derek's face went white. I could see him doing the math, trying to figure out if I knew, if I'd put the pieces together. My department recommended denial yesterday, I continued calmly. The project will need a complete redesign and proper community input before it can move forward. I set down the microphone. Thanks for having me tonight. Part 8. The silence lasted maybe 3 seconds. Then, the room exploded. Whispers, phones coming out, people turning to look at Derek. He'd gone the color of old paper. I walked off the stage without looking back. Sarah found me in the lobby 20 minutes later. She'd gotten my text. I was sitting on a marble bench, still in my gray dress, feeling nothing and everything at once. "Holy shit," she said, sitting down next to me. "That actually happened." "Yeah, are you okay?" I thought about that. Derek's project would survive. It would just take longer, cost more, and require him to actually listen to people who knew better than he did. That seemed fair. The real satisfaction wasn't in the destruction. It was in the fact that I'd never needed him to understand my work. I'd always known its value. He was the one who had to learn. "I'm fine," I said, and I meant it. Derek called me 4 times that night. I didn't answer. By morning, his lawyer had sent an email about defamation concerns. It was empty. Every word I'd said was documented in city records, public information. I went to work on Monday like nothing had happened. My director called me in and we didn't discuss the gala. We discussed the project, how to structure the community review process, how to help them get it right. That's when I understood something. Small people make noise. Strong people make changes. I'd always been the strong one. I just finally let him see it.